nobody's here yet, but we'll just get started anyway. We are the three girls as usual. And we are doing this time around the third installment of our sort of three girls, one book kind of book clubby book discussion mini series. So we read this time around Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. So we're all really looking forward to talking about that. I think that we all definitely had like very different experiences and different feelings about the book, so it should be interesting. And yeah, I guess, as we get sort of hopefully some more people coming in, I will just go ahead and I guess give a brief synopsis of the book, just to sort of jog everybody's memory and sort of remember, exactly what went on in this book. So basically, Spinning Silver is officially sort of touted as a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, but it's really like so much more and so much beyond that. Like you can see where it was inspired by Rumpelstiltskin, but there is so much more to it. And the book really revolves around, it takes place in sort of a fantasy fairy tale Russia kind of setting. And we have three female main characters who are the primary narrators of the book, along with there are some point of view chapters from a few other characters, but mostly it revolves around these three main female characters. So the first one that we meet is Miriam, who lives in a small village with her parents. The family is clearly Jewish, like they are clearly coded as Jewish. They are, and the family is a family of money lenders. And for a long time, they are not a very well-to-do family because Miriam's father is kind of a, really kind but kind of passive person. He's not very good at collecting on the debts that people owe them. And then finally, when things get to a really bad situation, Miriam kind of takes over the family business and starts becoming the collector for the family of the money that they lend out. And, obviously that makes her a little less popular in the village, but it also means that her family starts to do better financially over time. There is a sort of race of fantasy human-like ice elf creatures called the Stars. I don't know how to describe them better than that, but they have a sort of very sinister presence. They have the ability to kind of suck the life out of people. They tend to do that when they get upset with people. Like if they kill any white animal, those are all supposed to belong to the Sterek. And the Sterek also are they value gold very much, which we don't learn why until later on in the book, but they very much value gold. And they sort of, the Sterek king basically kind of figures out that Miriam has this magical ability to turn silver into gold, which is actually, her financial acumen that via the money lending business. But basically the Sterek king starts leaving money with Miriam, giving her these chests of silver and basically saying, turn this into gold for me within X number of days. And if you don't, you're dead. And if you do, great, but, basically that. And so Miriam every time goes to the big city, and she has a jeweler cousin who works there, and they use the Sterek silver to make some kind of beautiful jewelry piece, which they then sell for much more gold than the silver was worth. And that's how she is able to not only pay the Sterek king back the gold that he wanted, but also make money for her family in the process. And ultimately, the third time that the Sterek king shows up, he says, if you manage to turn this large amount of silver into gold for me, your reward will be that I'll marry you. But if you don't, which I fully expect you to fail, you're dead. But of course she succeeds, and then she has to marry him because they always keep their debts. They're sort of like Lannisters that way. So anyway, that is what happens to Miriam, and she ends up going off to the Sterek kingdom and having to be married to this king who is a relatively kind of cruel, forbidding figure at first. Our second main character is Wanda, who is another villager. Her father owes money to Miriam's family. And in lieu of paying those debts, her father, who is also an alcoholic, who is abusive, basically forces Wanda to go work for Miriam's family in order to work off his debts. But Wanda not only forms a very close relationship with Miriam and her family, but also figures out a way that she can start doing some extra work for Miriam's family so that she can save some money to hopefully get her and her brothers able to run away from their father. So that's what she's working on. And then our third main female character is a duke's daughter, Irina. Her father is the one who buys all of the jewelry pieces that were made out of the steric silver. And wearing them somehow makes Irina, who is kind of a, not super attractive, kind of quiet, not somebody who's seen as a very, sort of big prize from a marriage standpoint, but wearing the steric silver pieces makes her seem very beautiful and very alluring. And so the Tsar basically decides he wants to marry Irina. But they've known each other since they were kids, and he's like a very cruel, terrifying, psychopathic person who like used to torture small animals as a child and stuff. And so she's like not super thrilled about marrying him. But so on their wedding night, she has to leave with him, and he comes into their room, fully expecting to take advantage of her, and she manages to, without him knowing, escape. Like, she has the ability to look through mirrors and see this snowy world like outside of the mirror, and she is able to escape through the mirror and get away from him, and he doesn't know where she's gone. And she realizes while watching him through the mirror that he is actually possessed by this fire demon, basically. I've talked for so long, so I'm gonna just like leave it there. Basically, our three main female characters all have something that they need to deal with. Miriam's dealing with being married to the Steric King and being in their kingdom. He still wants her to turn silver into gold, which she actually discovers that when she's in the Steric Kingdom, she has the magic ability to literally turn silver into gold. Irina is trying to figure out how to escape from her fire demon possessed husband, and Wanda is trying to figure out how to escape from her father. So
Yeah,
that is what we have.
and we definitely see how they're all intertwined, and they all
Yes.
have to basically work together.
Yes,
To
exactly.
defeat the demon who's possessing Mirnatias, the Tsar.
Mm-hmm.
Chernobog is the demon's name.
Correct. Correct.
And how the Starrick himself plays a role in that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's very interwoven. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely more than it's definitely more than a straight retelling of Rumpelstiltskin.
It's actually a very long and complex book with a lot of different plot points
Yes.
that went on. And, from my standpoint, that is actually what I ended up loving about it. Like, there is a lot to this book, and it's a lot more than it sounds like when you just say Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It creates an entire fantasy world, an entire, fantasy race of creatures in the form of the Steric, who operate by completely different rules than humans do. And then this also Chernobog, this fire demon who basically wants to feed off humans and also feed off the Steric if he possibly can. So
like the Steric is the prize, and like his kingdom is the prize, because he's just, that's how he'll gain more power, and he wants to basically rule the Star Kingdom and eat all the souls. And so, and he's just had this reputation of, essentially, I mean, the Tsar himself has been possessed by Chernobog because it was actually the Tsar's mother who made a bargain with Chernobog. She bargained her own son to Chernobog so that she could get what she wanted. And so that plays into his being, he's a psychopath. And also,
but it's because he's possessed. It's literally, and he was actually kind of a victim in the situation.
Right, exactly. It's just like, well, kind of, it's like, okay, you can feel some angles of sympathy there as the story goes on, and and his story is actually unveiled, and like as to why Chernobog is like taking over his body and such. So it's just, there's so much going on, so much going on. Yeah.
Very complex book. And it's interesting too, like that you mentioned the bargain that the Tsar's mother makes with Chernobog, because the theme of bargaining and making deals and sticking to your deals is
debt,
like, and debts, paying debts is like the theme of the entire book for every single character, really. And that makes it really interesting. I really liked that aspect of it, because that very like the way that the Steric operate is everything that they do is about debts and holding like life debts over people and making sure that those debts are paid, to the point of, the most important thing in their culture is paying debts and not being in debt to people. And so it's a very interesting aspect of their culture, and it makes them seem very cruel to start with, but it also starts making a weird sort of sense after a while, that this is just culturally how they operate.
Right.
And for Miriam, once she kind of figures out how that all works, she figures out how to make it work to her advantage in certain ways, like following the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit in a lot of cases. So yeah. So let's see who we've got with us. We've got, yay, Marlena, we've got Kathy. So cool, welcome. I'm very interested because Kathy says she almost abandoned it so many times and actively hated it for the first 200 pages. And I think we have someone who had a very similar experience, which would be Heather. So I don't know, Heather, if you want to start by sharing like what, because obviously Julie and I both finished it and enjoyed it, but you did not. So like, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about what your experience was like, because
I did not finish this book. Yeah, no, I did not finish this book. I tried really hard, but I did not finish this book. I did not think this was well written at all. And I think that the like Miriam and Wanda and Irina are the same person. The character voice was weak, really, really weak. And I think that it was so weak that jumping between their heads in one chapter without really giving you any indication of who was who was not a good idea at all. I thought it was difficult to follow. Not the plot wasn't difficult to follow, but like being in one head from another I just don't think that first person worked for this story at all. I did not want to be in these people's heads. And I did not care about anything that was happening to them. I just thought it was like, ultimately, I just thought it was badly written.
That's interesting, because that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up, was how you guys both felt about, because one of the very interesting things about the way this is written, which Heather just pointed out, is that it is written from a very tight first person point of view. It kind of rotates among Miriam, Wanda, and Irina, along with occasionally, like there's a couple chapters from the point of view of the Tsar. There's a couple of chapters from the point of view of Irina's old nurse who took care of her and who was also trying to help her with escaping from her new evil husband. But aside from that, it does go from those three characters' heads and it doesn't tell you at the beginning of the chapter. Like, you have to get from context clues in the first couple of sentences whose point of view you're reading from. And the first time that happened, I found it very disorienting. But after I figured it out, I didn't have trouble with it for the entire rest of the book. Like, it became pretty obvious to me whose point of view I was reading from. Like, just from the first couple of sentences of any given section, I could tell who it was. So, and I don't know, Julie, how you felt about that, because I think that's kind of like a polarizing aspect of the book.
I agree. And I can see how that would frustrate people for sure. Because at first I'm like, okay, what is this BS? Like, why are you not just explicitly saying chapter Wanda? Chapter,
Wanda. Miriam.
It's not that hard. I don't see, and I agree with you, Sarah. At first, for me, it was disorienting. And so conversely to, Heather's feeling that, she didn't feel like it was well written. I thought that because it was so well written, that I was able to pick it up. It started to not bother me. And because I was able to get a sense of each character, aside from, I did have to then adjust for then when all of a sudden Stepan is narrating, right? But I was able to figure it out. I was actually able to figure it out pretty quickly. And so for me personally, I thought it was because she did so well capturing voice and narration, the narrative quality, that worked. And I don't know necessarily. So it ended up not being an issue for me.
Yeah.
Now, do I think that anything would have been lost in there being an explicit like title? You know what I mean? Like explicitly stating that this is Wanda talking versus Miriam. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But yeah, I can see why people would be very, very frustrated by that, because it is all, yeah, it's predominantly first person. And then you have no, I mean, you really do have to rely on paying attention, the context clues, and being absorbed in the narrative. And if you're not absorbed to begin with, it's going to make it all that much harder for them
exactly.
to
I mean,
transitions. Yeah.
I think for me, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with the decision in the end, to just not give titles to the different chapters.
Yeah.
I think if I were to speculate on what the reason for it was, my speculation would be, when you look at our three main female characters, we have Irina, who is very wealthy, daughter of the Duke, becomes the Tsarina, like literally the queen of the country. We have Wanda, who is very poor, abusive father, trying to take care of her two brothers, like barely surviving. And then we have Miriam sort of in the middle. She is the daughter of a money lender. She comes from a relatively wealthy family, but they are a family of Jewish money lenders. So they are kind of on the outskirts of society. In the nearest big city, her family all kind of lives in the ghetto, and it's a nice place, but it's still ghettoized from the rest of the town. But despite that, all three of them have the same problem, which is that all three of them have a male figure in their life that they have to deal with and figure out how to find their own freedom from the situation that they're in. So it's these people from three totally different classes of society, three women who all still have the same issue. They're all still dealing with the same problem. And so if I were to speculate, I think the reason is because, like, the point of the book was trying more to get at the similarities among these characters as opposed to the very obvious differences. Again, I don't know that not putting titles at the chapter was necessarily the way to do that, or that it worked necessarily. I don't know that I agree with the decision, but my guess is that's why they made it.
Because it wasn't even chapter by chapter. Like, she would jump heads in the middle of a chapter. She would jump to another character. Right. And I think that if you're going to do that, you have to be really good at writing characters, and you have to be able to pull it off. And I don't think context clues are enough to do that and do it well. I think your reader shouldn't have to rely so heavily on picking up context clues to figure out whose head they're in halfway through a chapter. I think in order to, and I have read books like that and very much enjoyed them from people who I just think do it much better.
Yeah, we have got some interesting. So from Kathy, couldn't picture the world and didn't jive with the writing style. Marlena talking about, like there are some scenes where it switches to Stepan's point of view, who is Wanda's youngest brother, and like all of a sudden it's a kid, writing, which is can be a little disorienting. And then Marlena didn't care for the royals, and it sounds like Kathy had the same thing. She ended up skipping chapters that weren't Irina or Miriam. So So yeah, that's fair. I definitely I can understand why, you might have a different attachment to different characters, and
I didn't care for any of them. I didn't care for any of them. And to be fair, I didn't get to know Irina long enough, because I think she only appeared once or twice before I was like, I am never picking this book back up. I started it in January, and in March I was still only 20% of the way through.
At a certain point, we were legit like, Heather, don't torture yourself anymore.
Just don't read it.
DNF it. You can still talk about it if you DNF it, and that will make it interesting. So
exactly. It'll just be another perspective. It'll be like
it'll be fine.
I tried so hard.
She was trying so hard, and you could just see the look of agony in her eyes as she was telling us. And we're just like, girl, just stop. You don't have to
do this to yourself. There was something. There was something about the writings, and it's not just the first person point of view, but there was, and I still can't put my finger on it, but there was something about the writing style that I just didn't like. like I just, and I don't, and it's not her writing necessarily, because I really enjoyed Uprooted a lot.
Okay. Huh.
Which I'm not sure which one she wrote first, though.
Uprooted.
Uprooted was
She did write
first.
Uprooted first. Yeah, I thought so. But there was just something about this one that I just didn't like at all.
So,
oh, look at that, psychic.
Yeah. So I will say, in my case, I've read almost everything by Naomi Novik. I really like her as a writer. Hell, when she used to be a fanfic author, I used to read her fanfic too. So like I've known her from way back. She is a lot of you guys probably don't know this, but Naomi Novik is like one of the biggest, most famous founder of AO3 like figures in the fan fiction world. So she is a big deal in the world of fan fiction.
Wow,
and
awesome.
that is who she was before she started writing her own books. But so I've read the Temeraire series, I've read the Scallamance series, I've read Uprooted, and I've read Spinning Silver. So I've like
the Temeraire series is one that is quite high on my list of series that I would like to read. And I've heard people talk about it, and it sounds like I would really enjoy it.
It's good fun. It's really good fun. Yeah. So
I've only read Uprooted and very much enjoyed that, and just had Spinning Silver on my to read for like the longest time, and just I never got around to it. So I have to check the other series out, because I actually do like her writing as well. I liked Uprooted, and I liked Spinning Silver. Again, fair enough. I understand it's not the style and the structure that she chose is definitely not for everyone, and I myself was challenged, initially, and with some of the switches, but like, but I guess I just didn't. As soon as I got a groove fairly early on, actually, and felt like it really wasn't that much work, and I can totally see how for other readers it would be. Yeah, you don't want to labor your reader. You know what I mean? You want it to feel like they're escaping into a world where it doesn't take so much cerebral energy. I
know. It depends on the book, because there are books that make you work really hard, and that's part of this book. Like, the Malazan books, you have to work really hard with those ones. They are not just sit down and read experiences, but so it does depend on the book. But for this one, I was just like, I'm not willing to work to figure out whose head I'm in.
I feel like I'm not willing to work in general for fiction. Like my I just in general, and fair enough. Again, I know that there are people like books like that, and people who do feel very, like rewarded in that effort. I do not have the brain power, energy, like I just don't. Not for something like fiction. I just want to, read it, escape. I don't care, but I don't want to be too bothered by trying to find loopholes and be super smart about, like I just want to. So for me personally, books like that, just I can understand why. If this felt laborious, I could totally understand why people would be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, it did. And it's so interesting when people are talking about like, it got good around the 200-page mark or the 150-page mark or whatever. And I'm like, how long was this book? Like 400 pages?
So, I don't remember.
50% of the book is way too far for the book to start getting good.
I don't know, because I read it on Kindle, but but it wasn't halfway into the book when Irina finally meets Miriam. Like there's a lot more stuff that happens after that, like a lot of stuff. One other thing, just to kind of go back a little bit to the topic of Naomi Novik as an author, that I just wanted to mention to people, because as someone who's like read everything that she's written, and I think this also comes from the fact that she was a fan fiction author. Her different series vary widely in tone, in the style, in the way that they're written. Like Spinning Silver is nothing like Temeraire, is nothing like Scallamance. So if Spinning Silver was not your thing, then you might very well enjoy the other series. I mean, Temeraire is like Napoleonic Dragon Wars. It feels like reading Jane Austen, but with dragons, basically. It's basically like Jane Austen plus Master and Commander plus dragons. It's like how the Temeraire series reads. It's really fun. Scallamance is like Harry Potter, but like a billion times darker. So, but again, so totally different in tone, style, world building, everything. So like, if you didn't like Spinning Silver, it doesn't mean that you're not going to like other stuff Naomi Novik is doing, because it's widely divergent.
Because even Uprooted, which is the only other one I read, I would feel like that to me was different than just Spinning Silver. Like,
I agree. I mean, I think then that's like what I really enjoyed Uprooted quite a lot, and I liked the way it was written. I liked everything about it, and I didn't like Spinning Silver. And for me, if you'd given me both books, I'm not sure, and not told me who they were by, I'm not sure I would have guessed that they were the same author.
Yeah.
See, interestingly enough, I like Spinning Silver quite a lot more than Uprooted.
I did too, actually.
Yeah, I liked it way more.
Yeah, I really did enjoy Uprooted. Don't get me wrong, but like I was way more, I guess, just I don't know. Definitely more excited by Spinning Silver. So.
Well, and like I guess the sort of main conflict in the way that the sort of main conflict ends up happening in Uprooted, where it's like trees and I don't know. It's just, it wasn't as exciting. Like, it just honestly to me was not as exciting as Spinning Silver.
I mean, I have to agree. Yeah.
There's so much more going on. There's, it's fun and interesting when Miriam is dealing with the Hysteric Kingdom and having to, do all of these tasks of turning silver into gold and figure out how to be able to do it without, running afoul of the king's requirements. And then Irina figuring out how to defeat her fire demon husband, and then capturing the Hysteric King to feed to the fire demon, and then freeing him, and then the fire demon escapes. Like a lot of stuff happens, and it's like really exciting stuff. So it just felt more exciting than Uprooted to me, I guess. So yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, but you do have to get to that point. Like, you do have to get to the point that
because a lot happens,
and then stuff starts happening. Definitely. So let's see what else we have. So Marlena saying the tone. Yeah, there wasn't really lightheartedness or humor.
I mean, I would say that's fair. Like, it's definitely a darker, more somber tone to it. I mean, there's really no comedy or like, there's no.
And then Alice Hoffman. That is true. That all the Alice Hoffman books I've read are like totally different. Like,
I've only tried one Alice Hoffman and I DNF'd it.
Was it Practical Magic?
It was Practical Magic, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really like Practical Magic.
Yeah, no, I know that the reason that I DNF'd Practical Magic is because I am too invested in the film, and I've seen the film too many times. And so the book was really jarring and didn't work for me for exactly that reason. And if I'd have read the book as a separate entity and didn't know the film, I probably would have really enjoyed it. But
makes sense.
So I guess, what did you guys? Well, I can't really ask Heather about this, but for Julie, I am curious about how you. Because one of the things that I liked about Spinning Silver was that it felt, and I think this is part of the reason too why I enjoyed Nettle and Bone so much specifically, is that I really like the tone of fairy tales, and I really like the sort of feeling of reading a book that feels like fairy tale. And one of the fun things for me about Spinning Silver was that some of the stuff in it, like about Irina being able to escape through a mirror, or the part where the old nurse and Wanda are in the same cottage at the same time, but they can't see each other, and it's like they're in two different worlds but in the same house in two different worlds, and all of that stuff. It was like I spent so much time Googling trying to be like, what fairy tale does this remind me of? Because I felt like it was like, I've read this before. Like, there is a fairy tale where this happens, and I just can't remember what it is. And I was never able to find which fairy tale I was thinking of, but it still felt super fairy tale-like.
Yes, it's very, and I am all about like fractured fairy tales. That is a go-to kind of genre for me. So this book was definitely up my alley. And so I just love the whole idea of it being a fractured fairy tale, having a very kind of folklore quality to it. And just all the magical elements. And yeah, just all of the facets in that novel are just so like a Julie read, you know. So it's no surprise that like I would say out of all the books that we've read for Three Girls, this has been my favorite so far. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's great.
Yeah. Cool. So my other question though for you, because this is something that if I had one reservation about the book, it was that I wasn't sure, like the ending was interesting to me because I was thinking for like a good 2/3 of the book that actually, because we get this sort of implication that Irina has some Steric ancestry.
Yes.
And when she goes through the mirror, where she's actually going is into the Steric kingdom. What is what we discover, because she ends up meeting Miriam there. I was thinking that she was going to end up with Steric. I totally thought that that's what was going to happen.
I did not think that. For some reason, I did not think that.
Oh, really?
Only just because she had such a tie to her own world and kingdom and being a good Tsarina. So is that the term? So no, for some reason, I really never got that indication. And I really felt like where the novel was going was to make an enemies to lovers trope work between Miriam and the Starrick. So that was never, that never had occurred to me. That would have been really interesting.
See, that's, and maybe it's just because I was like limited in terms of my vision, because I couldn't see, like, even as Miriam grew to understand the Steric King more, he still was like not particularly human seeming, like he didn't have and so when she was sort of like, "Reader, I married him" at the end, I was like, "Whoa, okay." Like, really?
Yes.
And then same thing with Irina, like, yes, she finally gets some sympathy for this poor guy who's been possessed by a fire demon because of his mom, and they eventually drive the fire demon out of him, and she ends up being like, "Okay, well, we can stay married now, it's fine." But it was still sort of like, he was really bad.
I'm just like, do we forget that he tortured and killed squirrels as a kid? Because which is a sign of psychopath. I mean,
he was already possessed by the fire demon at that point.
Sure. But it's just kind of, I mean, just so definitely elements like that. I'm just a little bit like, well, okay. But I'll just go with it because I'm just enjoying this so much that I'm just going to let that slide. And I mean, the fact that the Starrick, I mean, he was, going into what was the name of the village that Miriam, was it Lithfas, or I can't remember, but I mean essentially like allowing pillaging to happen, assaults to like, I mean just treating the villagers so cruelly. I mean, and it's like, okay, well, I guess that just slide that under the rug there, and like, you know what I mean? It's just, and yes, it was a very, at the end, "Dear reader, I married him."
Yes, it really was. It was fully Jane Eyre style. "Reader, I married him." I was like, whoa, okay, okay. You're like, now you're like breaking the glass at your Jewish wedding to the Steric King. Like, okay. Like,
and it's really interesting because it's like, I saw that it was going, I saw that there was going to be like an enemies to lovers, I felt like it was going there, but I didn't think it would hop all the way to like, "And we married."
Yes.
I'm like, "I would like to court your daughter," despite the fact that I've been a colossal douche lord, like to the villagers, to your daughter, to all of you. Exactly. And they're like, okay.
And he wasn't unpossessed by a fire demon. He just stayed the same guy the entire time. So I was a little bit surprised that they ended up getting married. But
I was like, okay, wow, that just really jumped really fast forward. Okay, all right.
People like totally sucked Wanda's brother's soul out just because he killed a white rabbit, but she's like, "Oh, we could still get married." Like, okay, yeah. So that was, with the ending, I was a little bit like,
for sure.
We really need to redeem both these guys. Were they both actually redeemable? Like, I could understand why and where it was going, but like that was the one. And it had its own like warm fuzzy feel, it was sort of like, "Oh, I got married in the end," but also like,
I mean, for sure, like I would say even more compelling to me, and of course equally problematic, is the end where like Irina does save Mirnatias, her husband. I have to say that to me was one of the most you know, I don't know what this says about me in my mindscape, but it was a very satisfying climax, you know, because given that in recent, you know, months, I've been reading books where I feel things have felt very anticlimactic. This is the kind of climax where I'm like, this is a good climax.
Yeah.
This is a good
It's
plot,
satisfying.
you know, like
Yeah.
pinnacle. Just the fact that like, because basically Irina, I mean, we get the sense throughout the novel that she is going to, I mean, she doesn't care for Menathias, and she's basically going to try to like, what is it, depose him? She's going to try to like,
Mhm.
you know,
Get him
get,
killed. Yeah. Depose him,
get,
get him killed, get somebody else to be Tsar.
get
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you do see their relationship develop. You do see how he is, you know, tortured by this bargain that he had no say in, you know, his, you know, and so, and he's bound by this demon, and he does show some moments of vulnerability, and it's really interesting because, you know, as Sarah said, Irina, when she wears the silver, the Starek silver, she is a source of attraction. Like men are attracted to her. Like she just becomes this source of attraction. And Renatius is like so exasperated by it. He's like, I don't get it.
What do you see in her? What do you
What do
see
you
in
see
her?
in her? I don't get it. But at the end, when she saves him, which was to me, it was just so great because the bargain that she makes with Chernobog, I'm probably jumping all over the place, but the bargain she makes with Chernobog is like, you know, I will do this for you in exchange. I don't want anything from you except that you leave me and mine alone. You do, no harm comes to me and mine. And so at the end, when she reminds him, he's about ready to like suck her soul dry, and she just basically, no, you are not to harm me nor mine. And she counts Mernathias as one,
hers.
as hers, being his wife. And so that's how they're able to save Mernatius and kill him. And the ending is just like, you know, she's like that he's gazing on her as if she were the most beautiful woman in the world. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this so much. I love it. And also he tortured and killed squirrels as a
Right, exactly. And also, like, you don't really know him as a person because
also,
he's been possessed by a fire demon this whole time. So who is he really outside of that? We don't know, you know, like.
Right. But I just thought that actually that scene was just so, and it's from the point of view of Margreta, which I thought was an interesting choice. And it worked for me. It actually worked for me to witness that through her eyes and her point of view. But I just thought that was just so well done and well written, and really felt like a very appropriate plot climax for me. So, but yeah, you know, and yeah, it almost makes you forget about how problematic it is to think about the trajectory of these characters and that they end up together, and you know, there's like happily ever after. But you know.
And I think to me too, the interesting thing about how Miriam ends up warming to the Stark King, and this is true with Irina and Mernathius as well. It's more about understanding their role as leader of a people and how important that role is, and how so for Miriam, you know, she grows to sort of connect with and in her own way love other Stark, you know, and there are people who basically devote their life to her, you know, they give over their, they basically give her their life debt, you know, and like and devote themselves to her, and they're the ones who help her as she kind of outwits the king in all of, you know, his requirements on her to turn all the silver into gold. And so she, you know, but what she finally learns is that, you know, all of the things that the Stark King is doing are very much about like protecting his kingdom and protecting his people and making sure that they're all okay and that they survive. And it's the same thing with Irina. Like, you know, she really understands like her responsibility as Starina in the same way that Miriam sort of starts to understand her responsibility as actual queen of the Stark. And that in a lot of ways is what drives their ultimate willingness to reconcile with these guys, you know, even though the guys are like have big issues. You know? So I found that really interesting that it becomes this sort of like larger responsibility to both of them, you know, about the kingdom that they are a ruler of, a co-ruler of, and understanding the responsibilities that are placed on their husbands and why their husbands do what they do, you know. And so that, I don't know, that aspect of it I thought was interesting, and it's different from other books that I like. I can't think of another book where it really kind of played itself out in that way, where, you know, it's very much about not just romance, but it's about these sort of like responsibilities of rulership that goes into it. So
for sure. Yes. I mean, I would say, yes, there are romantic components to this book, but it's so much more than that. This book is just so much more than that, for sure. So, yeah. I mean, are there other things that, we know how Heather felt about this book, but like, are there other things that you did not like? Were there certain things that you felt like bothered you, other than the plot, you know, what we just discussed? Anything else?
Things that I didn't like. You know, well, I guess if there is one thing that I will say, it's that, you know, the end is actually really action-packed, right? Like, Chernobog goes to the Steric Kingdom and like grows into a massive monster and starts attacking the mountain and everything like that. And so, and I don't know necessarily that, like, it was fine, you know, it was like a fine like action scene, but it just didn't have like the heft of a lot of the rest of the book for me. Like, it was exciting and everything, but it just, I don't know. I feel like maybe that kind of action is like not the thing that she's best at writing. So that maybe is why I didn't enjoy that quite as much. I don't know what you thought about
that. Yeah,
you know,
it really felt like more like a means to an end kind of thing, and it was exciting, and I understand that for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I felt like, I don't know that I like necessarily like hated it or anything, but it definitely, to me, when Miriam goes to the Starter Kingdom, and it turns out that she is able to magically turn silver into gold, and there's just no explanation as to how, because you know, because you know, as a money lender's daughter, you know, being back in her village, she has no magical ability there. You know, there's just, and so then now all of a sudden we're in, you know, in his kingdom, and she's just now able to, with a touch, turn silver into gold, and we're just kind of meant to take that for what it is. Okay, all right. Well, apparently you can do this thing that you could never do before, and we're not gonna find out the, you know, magical rules, the world building here. I feel like I could use a little bit more. So that was like, oh, interesting. Okay, it's never touched on and really never explained. So
no, that is totally true. Like, and that to me was an interesting aspect of it, you know. And I feel like it was sort of, it was almost like it was trying to say that like Miriam's abilities, even in the real world, are in their own way kind of remarkable, you know. Like she, you know, she's really good at what she does. Like she single-handedly brings her family out of poverty by actually being good at being a moneylender, you know, and like having a head for business and being able to, in the, you know, this sort of non-literal way, turn silver into gold. And to sort of say, okay, so once she gets into a magical kingdom, she can do the same thing, but magically, you know. I think that's maybe what the author was trying to get at, but like, you're right that there's no explanation for why it happens other than, well, thank goodness, because otherwise she'd be dead, you know, like. She's like, oh, look at that, I can touch it and turn it into gold. Well, cool. Because otherwise he'd be chopping my head off right now, you know. Thank goodness. So yeah, but you know, I don't know, that aspect of it I did find really, it was an interesting choice to sort of like not give any sort of further explanation as to why that.
She had many interesting choices, I would say.
Yeah. So I did find it interesting too how much, because this was also like a callback to Rumpelstiltskin, how much of the Stark society revolved around names. And people not knowing your name. Like we never in the book find out the Stark King's name.
Right.
To the point that that's the very last line of the book. Is Miriam saying, he signed his name to their marriage license, but she'll never tell us what it
Right,
is. You know?
right, right.
Which was kind of fun. I don't know, that aspect of it to me was kind of a fun way of playing on the sort of
For
Rumpelstiltskin
sure.
theme. So yeah,
For
I
sure.
like
Yes.
that. Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pages and pages of how the dress was made.
That's, oh, Margaret was, oh, yes. Yeah, there were
Oh,
definitely,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, I guess you know, it was a little bit surprising to me. Some of the non-main three characters' points of view, I felt like were kind of disorienting for me, like, because we didn't get them until much later in the book. You know, it was like, oh, all of a sudden we're getting Mernatius's point of view, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden we're getting Margaret's point of view, and all of a sudden we're getting Stepan's point of view. And I'm sure it was because, like, you know, there was a need. She felt the need to do that from a narrative standpoint because there was no other way to tell certain aspects of the story.
Or maybe she's just not very good. Like, you're working so hard to justify every choice that she made, which I think is lovely. But there is, like, maybe she didn't give an in-world reason for the magic because she just didn't think of one, and it was just a convenient plot point for her to get what she needed to happen in the book. I mean, both of those things could be true, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, I'm also I am coming at it from the standpoint of somebody who's read a lot of her books, and so, you know, she's not a bad writer. Like, I mean, I would be more inclined to think that there was a reason, even if an
I
ill-conceived
mean, not
reason.
necessarily, because if all of her books are different, then she might just be better at writing some types of books than others.
That
I don't think I wrote
I
enough
mean, I suppose that's fair, but, like, not to the point of just leaving in giant plot holes and being like, nah, whatever, you know, like, so I mean, I get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're saying. You know, like, I understand where you're coming from. I guess I have never sort of seen her as um an author who would necessarily just do that for no reason, because I haven't seen her do that before. But you're right, that could be the situation here. So
And oh my goodness, then leave that. Then I would have to say shame on the freaking editors and the publishing company for
mhm,
not being like, okay, what, like, we're missing chunks here, or like this
mhm,
is not working, or
mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah,
You would
yeah.
hope that a publishing company and
Mhm,
her editors that she's working with would pick up on some of this stuff, if that were the
mhm.
And where did she write it in terms of where does it sit with her overall
It's like her most recent
specialist?
I think,
book,
yeah.
except for, I think, like, there's a couple of the Scholomance books might have been after that one. Or maybe the last Scholomance book, but it's one of her more recent books. So uh, the Temeraire series was her first real big series
Mm.
that she wrote. So those were kind of the first books um, that she wrote. You know, more like over a decade back is when those books started coming out. So yeah, um, yeah. So yeah, and again, I feel like I had the same feeling about Uprooted as well, Marlena, where when something is written to be like a fairy tale, it doesn't always explain everything.
Right.
And
It's just you take.
sometimes in a fairy tale scenario, that's okay and it doesn't bother me. Um, so so I think that is kind of more of why I was less bothered by it, you know, feeling like plot holes necessarily, or that the magic system isn't fully explained. But I can also understand the standpoint that that's very frustrating in a lot of cases. So
I didn't get that far. I have no personal opinion on that either way. I don't think but in talking from personal experience of other books, I think there is a spectrum. Like Brandon Sanderson's magic systems are on one end of the spectrum, and then, you know, fairy tales possibly are on the other end of the spectrum, where magic is very detailed and explained, and you know all of the rules if you read Brandon Sanderson, and in fairy tales you don't. But I think either on wherever you sit, you don't necessarily need to explain the rules, but the readers need to trust that there are rules.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can't just do whatever you want with magic whenever you want, and that you as an author need to know what the rules are.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, when you think about like Rumpelstiltskin as a fairy tale, you know, this girl, the king finds out that she said that she can spin straw into gold, and so he puts her like in a dungeon and says, spin all this straw into gold or I'll chop your head off. And then a random elf shows up and is like, I can do it for you, but you got to give me your firstborn child. You know, like there's no rules there. You know, like it's I mean, that's how fairy tales work. Like they, you know, it I don't know it.
But there is still rules to the magic. Like he can do it, but she can't suddenly just do it because she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are still rules. All magic, good magic systems all work within a set of defined in-world rules, even in fairy tales. It's just that the rules aren't explicit. They don't need to be explained to the reader.
So, I mean, even in this world, though, like Miriam can turn silver into gold outside of the steric world, and she can turn silver into gold inside the steric world. It happens 2 different ways, but at no point can any of the steric suddenly turn silver into gold. You know, I mean, I feel like it's a very blurry line between what's sufficiently described or sufficiently explained and what isn't. You know, like. You know, the Steric very early on in the book obviously come to the conclusion that she has this ability, even if in the real world they don't understand it, she has this ability to take silver and turn it into gold. They just like hear about it, you know, oh, this woman can do this, like her, you know, her family suddenly has gold where before they had none, you know, so let's go see what she can do for us, you know. So I mean, it's so yeah, I feel like it is kind of a blurry line ultimately, when it all comes down to it. Like Miriam can turn silver into gold. How she does that is different in different worlds, but that's her power, you know. But I mean, but again, like I can totally see the other standpoint too, where it's like, okay, that still doesn't make any sense. So I can understand it. But I think generally speaking, I do tend to give more leeway to books that are like, I love a good magic system, you know, that's well explained, but I do tend to give more leeway to books that are like written as a fairy tale retelling, because fairy tales often just don't make any sense. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think if it had been, you know, just that one aspect of it just not really being explicitly explained or even alluded to as to why Miriam can have this magical power in the Star Kingdom, I you know, in this instance, I was able to quite easily. I mean, I was just like, hey, we're gonna like, as a person who wants to know details, it is my inclination to be like, how? Because girl wasn't magical in her village, so how all of a sudden are you magical here? Like, do you have something in your blood? Do you like, you know? So definitely, I did, you know, have those questions, but and then I was just able to easily, knowing again, it's a fractured fairy tale. No, so I did make allowances there. If that had happened with other aspects in the story, though, I probably would have gotten a little frustrated. It's like, okay, we need I need some structure here.
Yeah.
Like I need some more clarification.
Well, and it was funny for me too, because like, you know, because of the fact that like the going into the mirror world thing felt so familiar to me, and the you know, whole thing about the 2 people living in the cottage at the same time but not able to see each other felt so familiar to me. So I was doing all this Googling, and I thought, because I used to have a couple books of Russian fairy tales when I was a kid that my grandparents had actually brought back from the Soviet Union when they visited the Soviet Union. And so I went back. I thought maybe that's where I remembered those things from. Maybe it was Russian fairy tales specifically. So I did all this Googling and read all of these Russian fairy tales that I remembered from being a kid. And they are especially fucking weird. like they are especially like, you know, the Vasilisa the Brave and the skull with the burning eyes that just like burns up her evil stepmother for no reason. And like all kinds of weird shit happens. And like, I don't know, maybe I was just in that headspace of like, being able to accept weird shit because I was reading a bunch of fairy tales trying to answer some questions for myself, and I was just sort of like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, you know, like very, very you know, feeling very loosey-goosey about what I was prepared to accept in magic system. I don't know. So yeah.
For sure, for sure. Oh, that's so funny. Yes.
Yeah.
Which Heather does not like at all.
No.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I'm just like not like the other girls. And yet I am. Like, actually, if you really read into my character, like, I'm such a cliche trope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would dispute that that was the trope at play in this book. Especially
I don't think anybody's saying it is the trope
Oh,
of playing.
okay.
Oh, yeah. This is just more of a general comment.
Okay,
She's
yeah,
just joking
okay.
around. She's
Yeah.
just- yeah.
Just yeah, okay. Just
Yeah.
because I
I don't think so either.
yeah,
I don't think
that
so
wasn't
either.
how I read it in this book, but yes, that is a super, super irritating trope.
Yeah.
That's happened. Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's so overplayed. for sure.
Twilight. There's a perfect
I mean,
example.
it is. I can't
She's
deny
not like the other
Sure.
girls.
mhm.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I would say most romantices, right, where the female
Yeah.
protagonist.
Just a lot of YA in general, I think,
Mhm.
relies on this a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Or it used to. I don't know about more modern YA, but
I would
used
say
to
there
rely
was
on this a little too heavily. It's
it was
like,
definitely the trend for sure.
but she's not like the other girls. She's
not
special.
like the other girls.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that
is-
and
yeah.
the you're the like super special chosen one, but nobody's ever told you about it and kept it a secret from you. And then they die, and all of a sudden you have to be able to step up, even though no one prepared you for this, despite the fact that all the adults in your life knew. It's like this. Why? Who would do this in real life?
Only in a fantasy. Only in a fantasy.
The thing that drives me crazy, like with Twilight too, is when the not like other girls is also paired with the other tropes, like adorably clumsy, beautiful, but nobody can tell that she's beautiful until she takes her glasses off. Like with Twilight, Bella fell down. Like when I've only read the first book, but Bella fell down so often. Like she just tripped over her feet and fell down like every 20 pages. And I was like, girl, do you have a brain tumor? Like you need to go to the doctor because normal adults do not fall
Broken.
down. Like
It's so funny though, in like the rest of the books, I really don't recall her falling down nearly as much. It was only just played up in the first one, but then the rest of the books,
But
she's
you know what's
know.
so interesting about those books is that, because I read all four, don't ask me why, but I did. But her character trait that becomes her like superpower after she becomes a vampire is that she's really fucking dull. And has no personality. And because she has no personality, when she becomes a vampire, none of the other vampires can read her. And she has this ability to like block them because she has no personality.
Well, I didn't think it was because she has no personality. I mean, I guess that's the way you're reading. I did not read it necessarily like that, but just okay, interesting. Fair enough.
No personality. As interesting as a brick.
Well, I mean, that's maybe K-Stew's way of portraying like in the movie. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I don't know. I actually think she did a really good job of portraying Bella the way she was written.
Well, okay. So, I mean, I'm biased because I love K-Stew. I love Arpat. Like, so I actually thought that it was well acted for the type of movies they were. I don't know. I just felt like I don't know. I think they did a great job. But I mean, there are just so many memes and like the emoticon charts of Bella just angry. It's that same look.
Yeah.
Happy, same look. Like surprised, just same stoic look. You know what I mean? It's become a running joke for sure.
She has the emotional range of a dead fish.
I mean, essentially, that is what people say of her. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Twilight. Yeah, I never managed to get past the first book, and truly the falling down constantly was one of the big reasons for that, because every time she fell down I was like, God, again? Why can't you stay upright for more than 10 minutes?
Gosh, oh my gosh.
Oh, adorably clumsy. Oh, just like every rom-com heroine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful, not beautiful, but beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Clumsy, yet able to then fight off like demons and shit when they find that they're the chosen one. All of a sudden, they're able to do combat.
Yeah. This woman needs to have her inner ear checked.
Oh.
Exactly. I was like, do you have vertigo?
Yeah, vertigo, ears.
But yeah, there was a whole trend, like it was like Hunger Games, Divergent, like
Yes.
it was every YA was a magical special girl dystopia for a while there, like, and they were all trilogies, and it was exhausting. So yeah,
we're all not like the other girls.
right, exactly. Which
The
I
other one,
understand is like,
that Cassandra Clare one, that's the same. That might even have been where it all started. With Clara. Is it Clara? Is that the girl's name?
I don't know. I have strong opinions about Cassandra Clare too. And again, this goes back to fan fiction days. So like I have never read any of her books because I think she's a terrible, terrible person. But like that's
good to know. I don't know any of her books. Do I know? I'm sure I must have heard of some of her books.
The Shadowhunter series. Do you not know that?
Oh, I know that of this. Okay. I know of that, but I would not have remembered the author's name.
Like her main character in that is the same. She's like this super special, important girl who is like really important to the magical demon hunting world, but it's been kept a secret from her all her life to keep her safe until she's attacked and has no way of defending herself.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is so funny. The number of times Fair said her bowels turned watery.
What? Fear like
diarrhea.
I could not with that one. I just could not get past book 2. I think is where I ended up with because talk about some tropes that I'm like, okay.
The thing, I liked the first book in that series just because it like played on the whole Beauty and the Beast trope and actually asked the question of like, so the Beast is actually an abusive dick, right? Like, I mean, that's keeping her prisoner. Like, that actually sucks. The Beast sucks, like she thinks she's in love with him, but actually it sucks. Like, that was interesting to me. But then the guy who became the main love interest, who was like the villain in the first book, became this like perfect paragon of perfection for all of the other books, and then I got so sick of it. So,
and I think that was like book 2, like because book 1, obviously, I liked it enough to go on to book 2,
right?
But then I was just like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna end it here. I'm gonna stop.
I've not read those. I keep like my library has them, and I keep like, shall I?
No,
I don't think I'm gonna like it.
You will not like it.
I don't think I'm gonna like it either. Interestingly, on a completely unrelated note, is a response to Malina's thing about Ripley, and sci-fi. What's really interesting is Ripley in Alien was originally written as male. And they didn't really change the character when they cast Sigourney Weaver, which is why she's so badass for the time. It wasn't feminism. It was just they just really liked her, so they cast her in a male written role, which is really disappointing when you know that. But
yeah, wow, okay,
yeah, it's okay. I've read Harry Potter too. I used to really, really deeply love Harry Potter, but I have a lot of issues with it now. So, but I will say that's why I hate Cassie Clare is big, because Cassandra Clare was a big name fan in Harry Potter fandom, caused a ton of controversy, took advantage of a lot of people. Like, she is a shitty, infamous person in the world of fan fiction, and that's why I've never read any of her books. So, that is what I will say. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think Sarah J. Maas is supposed to be a good person either.
Oh, no, I hear she's awful too.
Right? Like, there just seems to be this group of writers where you're like, and they're all of their series are really quite big series that people obsess over, and you're like, but they're shitty people.
Yeah.
It's always it's really interesting to me, and like it is, having been in the fanfic world for so long and having read so much fanfic, it's like there are quite a few authors currently who actually were big first in the fanfic world, and it you end up with opinions on them before they ever really publish a book, and it's interesting. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey was originally Twilight fanfiction.
Twilight fanfiction, I know. Yeah, exactly. Ali Hazelwood, she is. Do either of you read any Ali Hazelwood?
I just finished Bride.
She's Rilo fanfiction, apparently. I had to Google Rilo because I didn't know what that was.
I don't know
Star Wars, Ray Love.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but that's where she came up from, is Rilo fanfiction.
Oh, interesting. I thought, yeah, that's so okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
exactly. I don't know if either of you have read the Hex Hall series by Rachel Hawkins, but that one also she was a fanfic writer. Like lots and lots of people who are in, especially in YA fantasy nowadays, are
Fanfic.
former,
Okay.
Yeah,
former
it makes
big
sense.
fans. Yeah. So,
Huh, I love that actually.
but
Cool.
Naomi Novik
Marlena,
in particular was like a very well respected figure in the world of fan fiction. Did a lot for the community and found like the biggest fanfic archive that exists on the internet today, which is Archive of Our Own, which people mostly refer to as AO3. She was one of the founders of that archive and still is like on the steering committee and everything for it. And so she's very, very well respected. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't think anyone should feel ashamed of being a twihard, but I don't think anybody should feel ashamed of anything that brings them joy, as long as it's not illegal or hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twi hard till the end, man. That's me.
Yeah. Honestly, I loved the Harry Potter books. They were super important to me. I hate J.K. Rowling and I won't spend money on any Harry Potter thing anymore because money goes to her, but it didn't stop me from loving the story, you
I
know?
still love them. I still love them. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a shame what's not, I'm trying not to keep that separated and not to taint
Mhm.
my experience with those
Mhm.
novels. Like it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard, but I still love the Harry. I mean, if you want something kind of Harry Potter adjacent, Jessica Townsend has a series,
Mhm.
The Trials of Morgan Crow, and it's a female protagonist,
Mhm.
but and she has been constantly compared to Harry. Her books have been constantly compared to Harry Potter, but that's kind of been my fix. It's like when I wanted, it's like I want Harry Potter,
Mhm.
but like just can't go there because I feel, a certain way. I'm
Mhm.
just like, maybe I should reread
Mhm.
Jessica Townsend because
Yeah.
they're good fun books. Yeah.
And just FYI for the comments, this is my channel and I'll hate on whoever the fuck I want. So
Fair enough.
just FYI to commenters. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, well, do you guys have anything else that you want to add about Spinning Silver?
No, not really. I think we covered everything.
Mhm.
I really liked it.
I really did not.
Yeah, I honestly thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite book I've read this year, but it was probably in my like top 5 probably. I liked it a lot. I really once I got into it, it did take me a
It
little
takes-
time to get into it.
Sure,
But
sure.
once I got into it, I was really into it. So
I agree. Yeah. The start was, all the
so
setup
slow.
and yeah, it is slow for sure. I mean,
Mhm.
so that's another thing that's kind of
Mhm.
yeah, that can impede one from getting into the book because it's a little slow starting, but
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Well, oh, Beth, yeah, I have not started my new job yet. Supposedly, I start on Tuesday, but I don't have my laptop yet, so I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. So it'll be probably sometime this coming week that'll start. So, and then yeah, what's next as far as
As
books?
far as books.
We'll have to think about that but please feel free to in the comments, like if you have any suggestions or any books that you think we'd enjoy. No promises obviously, but feel free to suggest something if you think it would be
Or
fun to
even books that you think we wouldn't enjoy, but you'd like to hear us
talk about.
talk about.
Unless all three of us DNF it, in which case it wouldn't be a very good discussion probably. But
No, well,
that would be kind of hard. Yeah.
I've seen your TBRs. Well, that is true. Marlena does have access to at least mine and Sarah's TBRs, I think, because she follows us both on Goodreads. Well, we're all friends on Goodreads. So
yeah.
Goodreads. So
yeah. Marlena and I have been both reading the Empyrean, the Fourth Wing series, and talking about it to a large degree.
yeah, I've been. So did you finish the second one, the Onyx? Onyx one? Okay.
Iron
Fist,
the second one, and then
Onyx
Onyx
is the
Storm.
laser, right?
is the third one.
Oh, got it. Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of, I was, at first I was like, oh my gosh, she's making this into like a like, I thought it was going to be a duology. And then it was like, yeah, I don't, but I want to read the second one just to see what happens, you know, from the first to the,
You want to talk about plot
I
holes?
enjoyed the first one way more than I thought I would, but I don't need any more.
I hear you. I've been that way with a number of series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. So yeah, but the second one has more plot holes. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I mean, that whole series has a ton of plot holes. Like it, like, and I think Marlena would probably agree with me. Like from a quality standpoint, you know, it's not great literature, but they're fun as hell. You know,
Yeah.
they're a fun ass read. You know, it's just, yeah. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, I have it. I'll have to put it on. Do I already have it on hold at the? I don't think I do, but maybe I will, and it'll take 7 months for me to get it, and then.
Oh, it was just sat on the shelf in my library. The second one when I went today.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it was just sat there. I debated it, and then I looked at the size of it, and I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I don't want to.
It's hefty. I mean, it was, you know, it was a fun read. But the third one is actually a little bit shorter, which thank God, because like, lady, chill. Yeah. but it is, they are fun and sexy. Yeah. Okay. They're a fun read. So they definitely are like, you know, romantasy, like adult romantasy with all that implies. So yeah. All right. Well, and Beth, I'll take a look at the Silent Companions. And we'll take a look at that one and maybe see if it looks interesting, because I like Victorian goth. That sounds quite fun to me. So, okay. Well, our next live we currently have scheduled for Saturday the 7th. So that will be a normal 3 girls, 1 deck. We don't have a topic yet. If you have topic suggestions, as always, we are willing to entertain them. No promises, but always up for an interesting, you know, if somebody has a tag they like to see us do, or just a thought about what they'd like for us to talk about, we will always be interested in hearing what you guys are interested in. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
So anyway, so thanks so much, those of you who joined us. Oh, decks, and more decks. Hey. Sure. We can see if we can talk about decks. On 3 girls, 1 deck. I mean,
I'm sure we can squeeze maybe a little bit of a conversation about decks in there somewhere if we try really hard. I don't.
So we'll figure something out. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for joining us. It was a super fun discussion as always. And yeah, have a great one, everybody. Happy Saturday. Bye.
Bye.